All right. All right. Sorry about that, guys. I'll get that cut and reloaded up. So I did check the settings, and for some reason, it reverted to another mic. So I should be on now. So thank you for those of you that are waited. Let's get started all over again. Um, okay. So good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night, depending where you're joining us in the world right now. And welcome to another DC live stream. I'm your host, Wasim Debussy. And if you are watching us on YouTube, make sure you click the subscribe and the notification bell so you don't miss out on any of the updates. If you're not on YouTube, make sure you go to YouTube right now, look up Decrypting Crypto, and subscribe and add the notification bell and give this video a thumbs up. Now, today we're going to be discussing Swift. If you don't know what Swift is an international messaging service that allows people to send that allows financial institutions to send information across for any transactions. Now, since the recent removal of Russia from the SWIFT system, it has highlighted the importance of payments being used for economies and the power and the West weaponizing the SWIFT system. And this has caused a lot of questions for people about whether or not there's going to be a new um, financial system, a new currency, or something that's going to rival or oppose the US dollar. And we're going to cover that a little bit. We've spoken a little bit about this with CDBCs. We spoke about the BRICS and they're potentially creating their own token or creating their own currency. So now we want to look at the SWIFT system, which is the underlying system that is used by over 11,000 financial institutions around the world to be able to transact and send assets across the world. So if you've ever sent any money across to another nation, then or to somebody's bank account in another country, they usually ask you for their BIC or their bank identification code or their SWIFT code. This is a either 8 or 11 digit code that you put into the transaction that tells the system where this money's got to go. It tells them about the bank, it tells them about the country, it tells them about the city, and it tells them about the branch. So let's have a look at what this system looks like. For example, let's look at a bank called the UniCredit Banca, which is headquartered in Milan, Italy. Now, this bank has a SWIFT code of UNCRITMM. Now, the UNCR stands for UniCredit Banca. The IT stands for Italy, and the MM stands for Milan. Now, if there are any extra digits at the end, that usually is an identifier for the branch of that bank. So as powerful as Swift has been, it doesn't it's not a financial institution itself. It doesn't hold or transact any assets. And over the years, it has actually started to transact other things like securities and things like that. Now, before Swift became the prominent one, we were using, or the world was using, a system called Telex. Now, Telex was also available and it was cheap. You can send out messages. However, the problem with Telex was they had to write down all the information in sentences, which means that another person on the other side, when they got the message, they had to understand the message and action it and whatnot. And this is cause for human error as well as slowing down the process. So in 1973, the SWIFT system was founded. And at the time, it had 239 banks in about 15 different countries. By 1977, it expanded to 518 institutions in 22 countries. In 2022, it has over 11,000 institutions and almost every country in the world, 195 countries around the world and territories. Although that Although Swift is primarily a payment instruction service, it now sends a wide variety of actions, including security transactions, treasury transactions, trade transactions, and system transactions. So it has grown quite largely over the time. Now, since the United States and other countries sanctioned Russia on their war in Ukraine and has ejected Russia from the SWIFT system, it has opened up a lot of questions around the world. A lot of countries are looking at this saying, well, if we do something that the United States doesn't like or the West doesn't like, will we be sanctioned? Will this cause an effect on our economy? Will this cause an effect on our population? So a lot of countries now are asking this question and looking for alternatives other than that, where powerful countries like the United States and the Western countries have power over the SWIFT system, because they can decree who can use it, who can't use it. So a lot of these other countries who may not be as friendly towards the United States are now saying, well, what do we do if this happens? So even though they have ejected Russia, it hasn't really stopped Russia from trading internationally, because they are using other countries like India, like China, like other countries, for example, countries that they're friendly with, like Turkey. They're using these other countries and finding other ways to actually be able to transact. So now what we're seeing happening in the world is countries are looking for something else other than the SWIFT. So Russia has spent over a decade in terms of them trying to find preparing for this war, and they knew exactly what these sanctions were. So it's not like these countries aren't really preparing. And what we're seeing recently is, a lot of countries are looking at alternative ways other than SWIFT. If you've been watching the news recently, you would have heard that a lot of reserve banks around the world have been buying up gold like no tomorrow. In fact, last year, the reserve banks around the world have loaded up on 63 tons of gold. Year to date, Turkey itself has loaded up 56 tons of gold. Egypt has loaded up 44 tons of gold. Iraq has loaded up on 34 tons of gold. And this is just some of the countries around the world. According to some of the data I was researching today, most countries around the world have been net positive when it comes to the gold acquisition. So there's definitely something happening there with countries now looking for things other than the US dollar to be a reserve currency. And the reason for that is because the US dollar is so strong right now that all currencies around the world are struggling, including the Australian dollar, including the pound. All these strong nations or these strong currencies in the past that we've had are now struggling against the US dollar. So a lot of smaller countries, or a lot of countries around the world, are now looking for alternatives. So what are the alternatives? You have gold, you have cryptocurrencies such as Bitcoin. And one of the great things about Bitcoin is it doesn't need that intermediary. This is why the SWIFT system was created, because it needed an intermediary to send those transactions. With cryptocurrency, when you send a transaction to someone, you don't need an intermediary, because the blockchain validates that. It validates the transaction, makes sure that they've taken the crypto out of your wallet and put it into somebody else's wallet, and therefore the transaction is complete. So that eliminates the need for things like SWIFT and other messaging services. Now, another thing that China has been piloting and experimenting with, which is something that we've spoken about over and over again, is a central bank digital currency. Now, the Chinese have already piloted this in about 10 different provinces over there, 10 different Chinese regions, and they're starting to use it more frequently. And the idea behind the CBDC is that this is now a burden on the central bank. So the central bank has to settle the transaction, not the individual bank. So it puts more burden on the central bank, but also, as we've said in the past, it gives them more power. However, what they're looking at is as an advantage is that there's no need for a clearinghouse like SWIFT, or a messaging service like SWIFT, or a clearinghouse to be able to transact. So when an importer simply transfers their CBDC to another person, then that person can just take it to their bank, download it, and then get fiat out of it. So this is one of the things that they are trying to do to attract people towards CBDCs. And one of the things that we've been telling everybody is you've got to be very, very careful of it, because if they are programming it, they can program anything into the money. And that means they can program social scores. They can program taxes in there. They can program where you can spend it. They can even sanction you out. So going towards the CBDC is not really going to give us more power, but it's going to give the centralized authorities more power. So that's it around Swift today. How it works, what it does, what it's meant to create, how it's been weaponized, and how that hasn't really given the effect that the West wanted, and what are the alternatives that people are looking or countries are looking at employing. If you've liked this video, please press a like on that button. It's not going to cost you anything. It's going to mean a lot to us. Subscribe and press that notification bell so that you don't miss out on any of our upcoming updates. Have a great night, everyone, and I shall see you tomorrow night at 5 o'clock for our new format of the live stream with Matt and I, where we're going to be going through news highlights. We're going to be going through Twitter highlights as well as adoption highlights, and we're going to be covering the mayhem that's been going on in the cryptocurrency world in the past 24 hours. So hold on tight for that, and we'll see you guys tomorrow night. Have a great night. Bye-bye.